The gas station attendant looked at me like I had just announced my own funeral. "You are heading to Beacon Hills?" His weathered face, mapped with lines that spoke of too many harsh winters and countless sleepless nights, twisted into something between genuine concern and sheer disbelief. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting strange shadows across his deeply tanned skin. "Tonight? You are going there tonight?" I nodded slowly, glancing down at the GPS device mounted on my dashboard through the smudged window. The screen showed a winding blue line stretching across the map, terminating at a small dot labeled Beacon Hills. 23 miles to go. The autumn sun was already beginning its descent behind the jagged peaks of the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber, rust, and deep crimson. I had been driving for the better part of 14 hours straight. My body ached in ways I had forgotten were possible, and every muscle screamed for rest, for a bed. Any bed. Even one in some forgotten mountain town I had never heard of until 3 days ago when my research had led me here. "Is there a problem?" I asked, sliding my credit card back into my worn leather wallet. My voice sounded tired even to my own ears. The old man, whose yellowed name tag read Earl in faded red letters, leaned forward on his elbows across the scratched counter. His flannel shirt, red and black checkered, bunched at the shoulders. Behind him, mounted on the wall, a small television played the evening news on mute, the images flickering silently. "You do not know about Beacon Hills, do you, son?" "Should I?" I asked, feeling the first stirrings of unease in my gut. Earl studied me for a long, uncomfortable moment, his pale blue eyes searching my face as if trying to determine whether I was exceptionally brave or simply dangerously ignorant. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the hum of the ancient refrigerators lining the back wall and the distant sound of trucks passing on the highway. Finally, he straightened up with a grunt and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from beneath the counter, hidden among old receipts and lottery tickets. He smoothed it out with his calloused, work-worn hands and slid it toward me across the counter. It was a photocopied flyer, yellowed with age and handling, the text barely legible in places where the toner had faded. At the top, in bold, somewhat crooked letters, it read, "Beacon Hills Safety Rules. Read carefully and obey." "What is this?" I asked, picking up the paper carefully. The edges were soft, as though hundreds of hands had held it before mine. "Rules," Earl said simply, his tone leaving no room for argument. "If you are going to Beacon Hills, especially tonight of all nights, you need to know the rules. You need to follow them exactly. No exceptions." I scanned the list, my eyebrows rising with each successive line. Beacon Hills Safety Rules. Rule No. 1. Do not go outside after 9 p.m. for any reason whatsoever. Rule No. 2. Lock all doors and windows securely before sunset. Rule No. 3. Do not respond to voices calling your name after dark, even if you recognize them. Rule No. 4. If you see someone outside your window at night, do not let them in, no matter who they claim to be or how desperately they plead. Rule No. 5. Stay away from the woods after dusk under all circumstances. Rule No. 6. If you hear howling, remain completely silent and absolutely still until it passes. Rule No. 7. Do not invite anyone into your home after dark unless you saw them enter the town before sunset. Rule No. 8. Keep lights on throughout the night. Darkness attracts attention. Rule No. 9. If something follows you, do not look back and run to the nearest building immediately. Rule No. 10. Trust the rules, not your instincts. Your instincts will get you killed. This is a joke, right? I looked up at Earl, half expecting him to crack a smile, to slap the counter and tell me this was some kind of elaborate hazing ritual for tourists, some local tradition to scare outsiders. But Earl did not smile. His expression remained grave, almost somber. "No joke, son. Not even a little bit. Beacon Hills is not like other places you have been. They have their reasons for those rules, damn good reasons, and if you are smart, if you value your life at all, you will follow them to the letter." "What kind of reasons?" I pressed, feeling my journalist instincts kicking in despite my exhaustion. Earl glanced toward the window where the sun was now half hidden behind the mountains, the sky darkening from orange to purple. "The kind that keep people alive. The kind that have kept that town standing for over 150 years when by all rights it should be a ghost town by now. Just get to your hotel before dark, Lock yourself in good and tight and do not go outside until morning. And whatever you do, whatever you hear or see, do not go outside during the full moon. A chill ran down my spine despite the warmth of the gas station, despite the heat still radiating from the coffee maker on the counter. When is the full moon? Earl turned and pointed at a calendar hanging on the wall behind him, the kind with nature photographs and motivational quotes. A red circle drawn in what looked like permanent marker marked today's date with aggressive heavy strokes. Tonight. The full moon rises tonight at 8:47 p.m. My name is Ethan Cole and I am 28 years old. I came to Beacon Hills to find a story, to uncover the truth behind local legends and folklore. I never imagined I would become part of the story myself, that I would be fighting not just for a headline but for my very survival. I work as a freelance journalist, specializing in obscure American folklore, forgotten towns with strange histories, and the kinds of stories that major news outlets ignore. The weird, the wonderful, the unexplained, that is my beat. Beacon Hills had first caught my attention 3 months ago, back in July, when I stumbled across a Reddit thread discussing towns with the weirdest local rules and customs. The thread had over 5,000 comments, and Beacon Hills had been mentioned at least 30 times, always with the same cryptic warning. Do not go there during a full moon unless you want to disappear. Naturally, being who I am, I had to investigate. I had to know what was really happening in this remote Montana town. Was it just superstition? Local color? Or was there something genuinely strange going on? The drive into Beacon Hills felt like entering another world entirely, like crossing some invisible threshold between the normal and the impossible. The main road wound through dense forest, the trees so thick and so tall they formed a canopy overhead, blocking out what little remained of the daylight. The shadows beneath those trees seemed darker than they should be, deeper as though they held secrets. Every few miles I passed a hand-painted sign, Beacon Hills 15 miles, Beacon Hills 10 miles, and finally, as the road narrowed and the forest pressed closer, welcome to Beacon Hills, population 847. Below the population count, someone had spray-painted in dripping red letters, obey the rules or pay the price. The town itself appeared frozen in time, preserved like an insect in amber. Main Street was lined with brick buildings that looked like they had been standing since the 1800s. Their facades worn by weather and age, but still sturdy, still standing. A few shops remained open. A general store with a faded green awning, a diner with a flickering neon sign that read, Millie's, a small pharmacy with bars on the windows. But despite the open signs, the streets were eerily, unsettlingly empty. No children playing on the sidewalks, no couples strolling hand in hand, no one sitting on the wooden benches that lined the street, no dogs barking, no life. It was 7:45 p.m. when I finally pulled up to the Beacon Hills Inn, a 3-story Victorian building with peeling white paint and a crooked sign hanging from chains on the sagging porch. The building looked like it had seen better days decades ago. I grabbed my duffel bag from the trunk of my Honda and hurried inside, suddenly eager to be off the street, away from the oppressive silence. The lobby was small and dimly lit, decorated with faded floral wallpaper that might have been cheerful once but now just looked tired. Antique furniture that had seen far better days was arranged around the space. A velvet couch with worn armrests, 2 wingback chairs, a coffee table stacked with old magazines. Behind the front desk sat a woman in her 50s, her gray hair pulled back in a severe, tight bun. She looked up as I entered, her expression shifting instantly from neutral to visibly alarmed. "You need a room?" she asked, her voice sharp and clipped with an edge of urgency. "Yes, I have a reservation. Ethan Cole." She typed something into an ancient desktop computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard with practiced speed. The machine hummed and whirred. "You are checking in awfully late. Awfully late for tonight especially, I know. I apologize. I got delayed on the road." She printed out a key card and slid it across the desk along with another copy of the same flyer Earl had shown me. This copy looked even more worn. "Room 212, second floor. Read the rules. Follow them exactly. Do not leave your room after 9 p.m. for any reason. I do not care what you hear or what you think you see. Stay inside. What happens if I do not?" I asked, unable to stop myself. The woman, whose name tag identified her as Linda, fixed me with a hard, unblinking stare. Her eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds. People die. They die badly. Their bodies are found torn apart, scattered across the woods. Some are never found at all. Do you understand me? I swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Good. There is coffee in the breakfast room until 8 p.m. After that, everything locks down. If you need anything during the night, you are out of luck. Do not call the front desk. Do not knock on doors. Just stay in your room and wait for sunrise. Room 212 was exactly what I expected from a place like this. A small, cramped space with a double bed covered in a faded floral quilt, a wooden dresser that had been painted over multiple times, and a bathroom that had not been updated since the 1970s, with avocado green tile and a rust-stained sink. But it was clean, blessedly clean, and more importantly, it had sturdy locks on the door and windows. I checked them twice to be sure. I dropped my bag on the bed and checked my watch. 8:15 p.m., 45 minutes until the unofficial curfew. 32 minutes until moonrise. I walked to the window and looked out at Main Street below. The few shops that had been open were now closed, their windows dark, metal shutters pulled down, chains visible on some of the doors. The streetlights flickered on automatically one by one, casting long, distorted shadows across the empty road. The light they provided seemed weak, insufficient, as though the darkness was pushing back against it. Then I saw them, people emerging from the shops and buildings, hurrying along the sidewalk with their heads down and their pace quick and purposeful. They moved like soldiers retreating from a battlefield, like refugees fleeing disaster. They carried bags, children, pets. They disappeared into homes and buildings, and I heard the unmistakable sounds of doors slamming, locks clicking, chains rattling. Within 5 minutes, the street was completely deserted once more, as empty as a movie set after filming has wrapped. I pulled the curtains closed, suddenly not wanting to look outside anymore, and turned on every light in the room. The bedside lamp, the bathroom light, the overhead fixture. I wanted brightness, wanted to push back the shadows that seemed to be gathering in the corners. My laptop sat on the dresser, and I opened it, pulling up my notes on Beacon Hills. Over the past 3 months, I had compiled an extensive file. I had a list of disappearances and deaths over the past 50 years, all of which had occurred during full moons. The official reports, which I had obtained through Freedom of Information requests, blamed animal attacks, but the descriptions were always frustratingly vague, and no one ever identified what kind of animal. Bears, mountain lions, wolves? The reports never specified, and the autopsy findings were sealed. I had newspaper clippings, old and yellowed, with headlines like, "Another tragedy strikes Beacon Hills," and "Town mourns latest victim." I had census data showing that the population had remained remarkably stable for a town this isolated, hovering around 850 people for decades. People were born here, lived here, died here, but very few people moved to Beacon Hills and even fewer left. A sudden, sharp knock at my door made me jump so violently I nearly knocked the laptop off the desk. I crossed the room quietly and peered through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, probably in his early 30s, with sandy brown hair that fell across his forehead, and a friendly, open face. He wore jeans and a red flannel shirt, and he held a 6-pack of beer in one hand. He looked normal, harmless, like someone you would meet at a barbecue or a baseball game. "Hey," he said when I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. "You are the new guy, right? Saw you checking in downstairs. I am Nathan. Room 214, just down the hall." "Ethan," I said, relaxing slightly but not removing the chain yet. "Nice to meet you." Nathan grinned, a warm, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Figured you might want some company on your first night in Beacon Hills. This place can be pretty unsettling if you do not know what to expect. Trust me, I have seen plenty of newcomers freak out their first night." I hesitated for just a moment, then decided to trust my instincts. I unhooked the chain and opened the door wider. "Sure, come in." Nathan stepped inside and immediately handed me a beer, the bottle cold and sweating. He settled into the chair by the window, moving with the ease of someone comfortable in his own skin. "So, what brings you to our lovely little town? We do not get many visitors, especially not ones who check in right before curfew." "Research," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed and opening the beer. It was local, from a Montana brewery I had never heard of. "I am writing an article about small towns with unusual local customs and traditions. Beacon Hills kept coming up in my research." "Ah, so you are one of those guys." Nathan took a long swig of his beer, then fixed me with a more serious look. Fair warning. And I mean this in the friendliest way possible. People around here do not like outsiders poking their noses into things. Especially not during a full moon. You picked literally the worst possible night to arrive. Why is that? Nathan leaned back in his chair, his expression growing serious, the friendliness fading somewhat. Because the rules exist for a reason, Ethan. A very good reason. This town has a history, a long and complicated history, and it is not a pretty one. It is not the kind of thing people like to talk about, especially not to strangers with notebooks. Tell me, I said, leaning forward with interest. This was exactly what I had come here for. He studied me for a moment, taking another drink as if deciding whether I could be trusted with information that the town clearly preferred to keep secret. Finally, he sighed and said, "There is something out there, in the woods, in the mountains. Something that comes out when the moon is full. People call it different things. Some say it is a wolf, the biggest wolf anyone has ever seen. Others say it is something worse, something that should not exist. But everyone, and I mean everyone, agrees on one thing. If you are outside when it is hunting, if you are caught in the open, you are as good as dead. Maybe worse than dead. Have you ever seen it yourself?" Nathan shook his head slowly. "No, and I plan to keep it that way for as long as possible. I have lived here my whole life, born and raised in Beacon Hills, and I have seen enough to know the rules are not a joke. They are not suggestions. They are the difference between life and death. My uncle broke them once. Thought he could make it home from the bar after midnight. He was drunk, stupid, thought he was invincible. They found him the next morning in the woods, torn apart. I was 12. I will never forget seeing my aunt's face when they told her. A chill settled over the room despite the warmth. I am sorry. That must have been terrible. It was a long time ago." Nathan finished his beer and stood up, setting the empty bottle on the dresser. "Anyway, I just wanted to check in. Make sure you knew what you were getting into. This is not some urban legend or tourist attraction. This is real. Keep your doors locked, stay inside no matter what, and you will be fine. Probably. Nothing is guaranteed in Beacon Hills." Nathan walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "One more thing, and this is important. If you hear anything tonight, howling, scratching, voices calling your name, people begging to be let in, do not open the door. Do not even look outside. Just stay in your room, keep the lights on, and wait for morning. Trust me on this, I will. Thank you for the warning. Do not thank me yet. Thank me tomorrow morning if you are still alive." Nathan's attempt at humor fell flat. He left, and I heard his door close down the hallway. After Nathan left, I locked the door, checked it twice, then checked the windows again for good measure. The locks were old but solid. It was 8:50 p.m. now, 10 minutes until curfew. I could feel the tension building, a sense of anticipation in the air itself, as though the entire town was holding its breath. I settled back onto the bed with my laptop, intending to work on my notes to document everything that had happened so far, but I found it impossible to concentrate. Every creak of the old building, every gust of wind against the window, every distant sound from the street below set my nerves on edge. I was not normally a nervous person, but something about this place, about this night, had me on high alert at exactly 9 p.m. As though someone had thrown a switch, I heard it, a long, mournful howl that echoed through the night, so loud and so close it seemed to come from just outside my window, from the street below, from everywhere at once. The sound was unlike anything I had ever heard before. It was not quite a wolf, not quite a dog, but something in between, something wrong. The howl rose and fell, a sound of hunger and rage, and something else I could not quite identify. My blood turned to ice. My hands froze on the keyboard. The howl faded slowly, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed down on me like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. I sat frozen on the bed, barely breathing. My eyes locked on the door, half expecting it to burst open. Minutes passed. 5. 10. The silence was somehow worse than the howling had been. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway outside, slow and deliberate, heavy, accompanied by a wet, dragging sound, as if someone were trailing something heavy behind them, leaving a trail. The footsteps moved down the hallway, growing louder as they approached. They stopped directly outside my door. I held my breath, my heart hammering so hard in my chest I thought it might burst. I could hear my pulse in my ears. Then came the scratching. Long, slow scrapes against the wood like claws testing the barrier between us, searching for weakness. The sound made my skin crawl. A voice, low and rasping and somehow wet, whispered through the door, "Ethan, let me in. Please let me in." It sounded almost human. Almost. But there was something off about it, something that did not quite fit, like a recording played at the wrong speed. I did not move, did not speak, did not breathe. I remembered Nathan's warning, remembered the rules. Do not respond. The scratching grew more insistent, harder, faster, more desperate. The door shuddered in its frame. I could see it moving, flexing. "Ethan, I know you are in there. I can hear your heartbeat. Open the door. Open it now." Sweat dripped down my back. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The footsteps retreated down the hallway, the dragging sound fading, growing distant. I heard a door slam somewhere else in the building. I waited, trembling, for what felt like hours before I finally allowed myself to breathe normally again. Morning came as a profound relief, like being released from prison. Sunlight streamed through the gaps in the curtains, warm and real and safe. The sounds of the town waking up drifted through the window. Car engines starting, distant voices calling greetings, the chirping of birds, the normal sounds of life resuming. I got dressed quickly, splashing water on my face in the bathroom sink, and headed downstairs to the lobby. Linda was still behind the desk, looking as though she had not slept at all, her eyes red-rimmed and tired. "You made it through the night," she said, her tone flat and unsurprised. "Barely. Something was outside my door. Something that knew my name, I know. It comes to the inn every full moon, tests the doors, tries to get in, tries to trick people into opening up. But it cannot open them itself. Not unless someone lets it in. The doors are blessed, protected. Old magic mixed with new locks. What is it?" Linda shook her head firmly. "We do not talk about that. Not openly. You are alive, and that is what matters. That is all that matters. If you are smart, you will pack your things, check out, leave Beacon Hills today, and never come back. Forget you were ever here, but I could not leave. Not yet, not now. I had come here for answers, and I was not leaving without them. Besides, I was a journalist. This was the story of a lifetime if I could just figure out what was really happening. I spent the morning walking around town, notebook in hand, talking to anyone who would listen and trying to appear casual and unthreatening. Most people refused to speak to me, either walking away quickly or closing doors in my face when I introduced myself. But a few residents, perhaps out of pity or curiosity, were willing to share small bits and pieces of information, fragments of a larger puzzle. At Millie's Diner, a cozy place with red vinyl booths and a black and white checkered floor, I met Logan, a mechanic in his 40s with permanently grease-stained hands and a wary, guarded expression. He sat at the counter nursing a cup of black coffee that looked like it had been there for a while. "You are the journalist," he said when I sat down next to him. It was not a question. News travels fast. Small town. Everyone knows everything about everyone. You want to know about the disappearances, about the deaths, about the thing that hunts us when the moon is full. Again, not a question. "Yes." Logan signaled the waitress for another coffee, then turned to me. "What I tell you does not leave this diner with my name attached. Understood?" "Understood. Good." Logan took a sip of his fresh coffee. "The disappearances have been happening for as long as anyone can remember. Longer. Old-timers say it has been going on since the town was founded back in the 1800s, always during the full moon. Always people who were outside after dark or who did not follow the rules. The bodies, when we find them, are always torn apart, ripped limb from limb. The claw marks do not match any known animal. We have had wildlife experts out here. Biologists, hunters, trackers. None of them can explain it. What about the police?" Logan laughed bitterly. "The police? The sheriff knows what is going on, but what is he going to do? Put out an APB for a monster? The official reports always say animal attack, unknown species. That way the federal government stays out of it and we can handle things our own way. Handle things how? We adapt. We survive. We follow the rules that our grandparents followed, and their grandparents before them. We lock our doors. We stay inside. We do not ask too many questions. And most importantly, we do not invite outsiders here, especially not ones who want to write articles and expose us to the world. Is that a threat? It is advice. Good advice." Logan finished his coffee and stood up. There's a reason Beacon Hills is still here, still standing after all these years. We adapt, we follow the rules, and we do not ask too many questions. You would be smart to do the same. But what about the thing in the woods? Has anyone ever tried to stop it? To hunt it? To kill it? Logan fixed me with a hard stare. Stop it? You cannot stop it. You can only survive it. And sometimes not even that. At the general store, a cluttered place that smelled of old wood and dust, I met Blake, a quiet man in his late 20s with dark hair and darker eyes who worked behind the counter. He was less talkative than Logan, more guarded. But after I bought a few supplies and made small talk, he warmed up slightly. If you want to know more, really know more about the history of this town and what lives here, you need to talk to Derek, Blake said in a low voice, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. The store was empty except for us. He knows more about Beacon Hills than anyone else alive. He has been researching it for decades, obsessed with it really. Lives in a cabin on the edge of the woods, up near the old mine entrance. But be careful. Derek does not like visitors. He does not trust easily. And he has a shotgun. Where can I find this cabin? Blake drew me a rough map on the back of my receipt. Follow the old logging road north for about 3 miles. You will see a mailbox shaped like a bear. That is his place. But seriously, be careful. And do not go there anywhere close to sunset. I found Derek's cabin that afternoon following Blake's directions carefully. The old logging road was barely more than 2 ruts through the forest, overgrown and clearly rarely used. The cabin itself was a small weathered structure that looked like it had been built by hand decades ago. Surrounded by tall pines that blocked out most of the sunlight, smoke rose from the stone chimney, and a rusted pickup truck, probably from the 1980s, sat in the dirt driveway. Various animal skulls were mounted on the walls of the cabin, and strange symbols had been carved into the wooden posts of the porch. I knocked on the door, my heart beating faster, and after a long pause during which I wondered if anyone was home, it swung open suddenly. Derek was older than I expected, probably in his early 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a ponytail and a thick graying beard. His eyes were sharp and calculating, missing nothing, and he held a shotgun in one hand, not quite pointing it at me but not lowering it either. "You are the journalist," he said. It was not a question. Everyone seemed to know who I was. "Yes, my name is Ethan Cole. I am writing about Beacon Hills and its history. I know who you are." Word travels fast in a small town, especially when that word involves an outsider asking dangerous questions. Derek stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter with the barrel of his shotgun. "Come in, but make it quick. I have things to do before tonight. Preparations." The inside of the cabin was exactly what I expected from someone obsessed. Cluttered with books stacked everywhere, old maps pinned to the walls with red string connecting various points, and strange artifacts covering every available surface. Animal skulls, some I recognized and others I did not. Old photographs, their subjects long dead. Jars filled with herbs and things I could not identify floating in murky liquid. It looked like the lair of someone who had crossed the line from research into obsession long ago. "You want to know about the creature?" Derek said matter-of-factly, setting the shotgun against the wall but within easy reach. "Everyone who comes here does. Everyone who asks questions. You are not the first and you will not be the last. Yes. What is it? What is really happening in Beacon Hills?" Derek poured himself a generous glass of whiskey from a bottle on the cluttered table and sat down heavily in a wooden chair. He did not offer me any. "Sit." I obeyed, taking a seat across from him. "Beacon Hills was founded in 1847, Derek began, his voice taking on the quality of someone who has told this story many times before. Back then it was a mining town, rich in silver, copper, other valuable minerals, full of promise and potential. People came from all over hoping to strike it rich. But the miners dug too deep, went too far into the mountains. They found something down there in those tunnels, something old. Something that should have been left alone, buried and forgotten. What did they find? A curse." Derek took a long sip of his drink, his eyes distant. "The details are murky, lost to time and deliberate secrecy. But the story that has been passed down goes like this. One of the miners, a man named William Cross, was bitten by something in the deepest tunnels. Something that should not have existed. He survived the bite, but he was never the same afterward. On the next full moon, exactly 1 month later, he transformed into a beast, half man, half wolf. Something in between. Something wrong. He killed 3 people that first night before the other miners managed to subdue him, to chain him up. A werewolf. Derek nodded slowly. That is what the old stories call it, yes. William Cross was locked away, kept chained up in the mines during every full moon for the rest of his life. But the curse did not die with him, it spread. It passed to his children and to their children after them. For over 150 years, the curse has been passed down through the Cross bloodline, generation after generation. A family curse that cannot be broken. So there is still a werewolf in Beacon Hills? Right now? Yes, and no one knows who it is. The creature looks like a normal person during the day. They live among us, work among us, smile and laugh and pretend to be human. But when the full moon rises, they transform. They hunt, they kill, and the only way to survive is to stay inside and follow the rules that have been written in blood over the decades. I leaned forward, my journalist instincts on fire despite my fear. Has anyone ever tried to stop it? To find out who the werewolf is and end this? Many have tried. All have failed. Some have died in the attempt. Others have simply disappeared, never to be seen again. The creature is smart, careful, cunning. It hides in plain sight, and anyone who gets too close to the truth, anyone who starts asking the right questions ends up dead. Their bodies are found torn apart in the woods, or they simply vanish without a trace. Why are you telling me this? Why risk helping me? Derek's gaze hardened, his eyes boring into mine. Because you need to understand what you are dealing with. You need to know the truth. Beacon Hills is not a mystery you can solve with a few interviews and some research and a published article. This is life and death, survival and extinction. And if you are not careful, if you do not take this seriously, you will be the next victim. You will be another name on a long list of people who thought they were smarter than the curse. That night, back in my room at the inn, I could not sleep despite my exhaustion. Derek's words echoed in my mind, and I found myself pacing the small space, unable to shake the feeling that I was being watched. That something was out there in the darkness, waiting. At exactly 10:30 p.m., I heard it again, the howl, long and piercing, cutting through the night like a blade through flesh. I froze mid-step, my heart stopping. The howl faded, replaced by silence so complete it was like the world was holding its breath. Then came the footsteps again, slow and deliberate, moving down the hallway with that same wet, dragging sound. They stopped outside my door. I could see the shadow under the door blocking the light from the hallway. Ethan. The voice was different this time. Familiar. Very familiar. Ethan, it is me. Nathan. Let me in. Please let me in. I stared at the door, my mind racing. It sounded exactly like Nathan. The same voice, the same tone, the same inflection. Ethan, I am hurt. I need help. Please. I am bleeding. My hand moved toward the lock almost involuntarily. No. Stop. I pulled back, remembering the rules. Do not let anyone in, no matter who they claim to be. Ethan. The voice grew desperate, panicked, terrified. Please, it is after me. I need to get inside, please. I pressed my hands over my ears, trying to block out the sound, trying not to imagine Nathan bleeding in the hallway. The scratching started again, frantic and wild. The door rattled violently in its frame, the wood groaning under the assault. Ethan, please, it is killing me. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The silence returned. The footsteps retreated down the hallway, fading into nothing. I collapsed onto the bed, shaking uncontrollably. My mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion and doubt. What if that really had been Nathan? What if he was hurt, dying in the hallway while I sat here safe behind my locked door? But no. The rules existed for a reason. Derek had said it. Linda had said it. Earl had said it. Everyone had said it. Trust the rules, not your instincts. I sat there for hours, unable to move, unable to think clearly, just waiting for dawn to break and end this nightmare. The next morning, sunlight streaming through the window like a blessing, I found Nathan in the hallway, alive and completely unharmed, carrying a bag of ice from the machine at the end of the hall. You look like hell, he said, grinning that same friendly grin. Rough night? Something was outside my door again, I said carefully, studying his face for any sign of injury, any indication that he had been the one in the hallway. It sounded exactly like you. It said it was hurt, that it was bleeding, that something was chasing it. Nathan's grin faded instantly. His expression turned serious, almost sad. It does that. Mimics voices, copies people, tries to trick you into opening the door. It is good at it too, damn good. Did you let it in? No. Good. That is how it gets you. That is how it has gotten so many people over the years. It sounds like someone you know, someone you trust, someone who needs help, and your instincts tell you to help them. But if you open that door, you are dead. Simple as that. Nathan's voice was heavy with old pain, old memories. Over the next few days, I continued my investigation with a newfound urgency, speaking with more residents, digging through old records at the town library, a small building with more dust than books. Slowly, piece by piece, a picture began to emerge from the fragments of information. The werewolf was not just a mindless beast driven by instinct. It was intelligent, calculating, purposeful, and it had been terrorizing Beacon Hills for generations, possibly since the town's founding in 1847. That was over 175 years of death and fear. But the more I learned, the more questions I had. Who was the werewolf? How could the curse be broken? And why had no one ever tried to leave Beacon Hills permanently, to escape the curse entirely? I put the question to Logan one afternoon at the diner over coffee and pie. Leave? Logan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where would we go? This is our home. Our families have been here for generations. Besides, the curse does not just affect Beacon Hills, it follows the bloodline. If someone from the Cross family leaves, the curse goes with them. They transform wherever they are. At least here, we know the rules. We know how to survive. Out there, in the wider world, they would be hunted down and killed, or worse, they would kill innocent people who do not understand what they are dealing with. Better to keep it contained here, where we can control it, where we can protect ourselves. So, you are saying the werewolf is definitely a member of the Cross family? Logan's expression turned guarded, immediately suspicious. I am saying you should stop asking questions. For your own good, but I could not stop, not now. Not when I was so close to understanding. That night, I returned to Derek's cabin. He was sitting on the porch cleaning his shotgun in the fading daylight. You again? He said, not looking up from his work. I need to know who the werewolf is. I need names, Derek. I need facts, not just stories and folklore. Derek set down the gun and fixed me with a penetrating stare. Why, what difference does it make? What do you think you can do with that information? Because if I know who it is, maybe I can help. Maybe I can find a way to break the curse, to end this cycle once and for all. There has to be a way. Curses can be broken. Magic can be undone. Derek stood up slowly, his joints creaking. You cannot break the curse, Ethan. People have tried for 150 years. Priests, shamans, witches, scientists, doctors, hunters, every kind of expert you can imagine. The only thing you can do is survive it, accept it, live with it. There has to be a way, I insisted. Derek studied me for a long moment, then sighed heavily. You want to know the truth? Fine. I will tell you the truth, but you are not going to like it. The werewolf is one of us. Someone in this town. Someone who walks among us every day, pretending to be normal, pretending to be human. But when the full moon rises, they transform. They become a monster. And the worst part, the truly terrible part? They do not even remember what they have done. The transformation wipes their memory clean, erases it completely. So they wake up the next morning, covered in blood and dirt with no idea how it got there. No memory of the hunt, no recollection of the kill. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine being a monster and not even knowing it? That is horrible, I whispered. That is the curse. That is what William Cross brought upon his descendants. An endless cycle of transformation and violence and forgotten horror. But who is it? Who is the current werewolf? Derek hesitated, then walked back into his cabin. He returned a moment later with a leather-bound journal, old and worn. This is my research. Decades of work, tracing the Cross family tree, documenting births and deaths and marriages. The bloodline is complex, tangled. The curse does not always pass to the oldest child. Sometimes it skips a generation. Sometimes it splits, affecting multiple family members at once, though that is rare. But according to my research, according to every record I have been able to find, the current carrier of the curse is... He stopped abruptly, his eyes widening. What? Someone is coming. You need to leave now. I heard it then, the sound of a vehicle approaching on the old logging road. Go, Derek said urgently, pushing me toward the woods. Do not let them see you here, go. I ran, disappearing into the trees, my heart pounding. I circled back carefully, staying hidden, and watched as a pickup truck pulled up to Derek's cabin. Nathan got out. My blood ran cold. Nathan and Derek talked on the porch, their voices too low for me to hear clearly, but their body language was tense, aggressive. Derek gestured angrily. Nathan shook his head repeatedly. The conversation lasted several minutes before Nathan finally climbed back into his truck and drove away. I waited until the sound of the engine had faded completely before emerging from the woods. Derek was still on the porch, his face pale. "It is Nathan, is it not?" I said. Derek did not answer immediately. He just stared at me with haunted eyes. Finally, he nodded slowly.
"Yes, Nathan Cross, direct descendant of William Cross. He is the werewolf. I spent the next week in a state of constant anxiety and fear."
Digging deeper into Nathan's history, cross-referencing names and dates, looking for any connection to the Cross family tree. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing and the other half deliberately hidden. But then I found something buried in old county records, a birth certificate from 1995, listing a child born to a woman named Sarah Cross. The child's name was Nathan William Cross. My blood ran cold as I stared at the document. Nathan. It was Nathan. I thought back to our first meeting, the way he had warned me about the rules with such specific knowledge, the way he had appeared outside my door that second night, the way he always seemed to know things he should not know, the way he lived alone in the inn, a permanent resident rather than a visitor. No, it could not be. He seemed so normal, so friendly, so human, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. Every piece fit, I had to know for sure. That evening, after checking to make sure the sun was still high in the sky, hours before sunset, I went to Nathan's room and knocked on the door. He opened it, smiling as always. "Hey, Ethan, what is up? Can I come in? I need to talk to you about something important." "Sure." Of course, Nathan stepped aside and I entered, my heart racing like a drum in my chest. "I have been doing some research," I said carefully, watching his face, "about the history of Beacon Hills, about the Cross family and the curse." Nathan's smile faded slowly like ice melting. "Why are you digging into that?" "Because I think I know who the werewolf is." The room went completely silent. Even the sounds from outside seemed to stop. Nathan stared at me, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something like resignation. Then slowly, deliberately, he closed the door behind me. "You should not have done that, Ethan. Is it you? Are you the werewolf?" Nathan sank into the chair by the window, his head in his hands, his whole body seeming to collapse inward. When he looked up at me, his eyes were filled with pain and despair. "I do not know. I know I am a Cross. My mother told me the truth before she died, told me about the curse, about what I might become. But I do not remember anything from the full moon nights. Nothing at all. I wake up in the woods covered in dirt and blood with no memory of how I got there. No memory of what I did. No memory of who I killed. So it is you. I do not know." Nathan's voice cracked with anguish. "Do you understand? I do not know for certain. I have no proof. No memories. Just blood and suspicion and guilt for things I cannot remember doing. I have tried to leave Beacon Hills so many times, tried to escape this curse, tried to run away. But every time I do, something pulls me back. It is like I am trapped here, chained to this place by something I cannot see or fight. There has to be a way to break the curse." Nathan looked up at me, his eyes filled with desperate hope and crushing despair. "If there is, I have not found it. And I have been looking for 10 years, ever since I turned 18 and my mother told me the truth. I have searched everywhere, consulted every expert I could find, tried every remedy and ritual and cure. Nothing works. Nothing stops it. I am cursed, Ethan. Cursed to be a monster, cursed to kill people I do not even know, cursed to live in this nightmare forever." "What about Derek? Has he helped you?" "Derek?" Nathan laughed bitterly. "Derek has been watching me my whole life, documenting me like I am some kind of lab rat. He knows what I am. He has known for years. But he does not want to help me. He wants to study me, to understand the curse. I am just research to him. That is not true. Derek wants the curse to continue," Nathan interrupted. "He has devoted his entire life to studying it. What would he do if it ended? Who would he be without his obsession?" I did not know what to say. I stood there feeling helpless and overwhelmed. Nathan stood up slowly, walking to the window. The sun was lower now, getting closer to the horizon. "You should go, Ethan. The sun will set soon. And when it does, when the moon rises tonight, you do not want to be anywhere near me." That night, back in my room, I lay awake thinking about everything Nathan had told me. If he was telling the truth, If he really did not remember his transformations, then he was as much a victim as anyone else. Cursed through no fault of his own, forced to live with the consequences of something his ancestor had done over a century ago. There had to be a way to help him. There had to be. At exactly 9 p.m., the howl came again, right on schedule, cutting through the night. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. But this time I made a decision. I could not just hide in my room forever, following the rules, staying safe while people died. I had to do something. I had to act. I grabbed my jacket and my notebook and quietly opened my door. The hallway was empty, dimly lit by old sconces on the walls. I moved carefully, quietly toward the stairs. "What are you doing?" I spun around. Linda stood behind me, her expression horrified. "I have to go see Derek. I have to." "You will die out there. You will be torn apart. Get back in your room now. I cannot just hide anymore. There has to be a way to break this curse." Linda grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "Listen to me. You cannot break the curse. It has existed for over 150 years. Better people than you have tried and failed. Do not throw your life away for nothing. It is not for nothing. Nathan deserves a chance. He deserves to be free. Nathan?" Linda's expression changed, softening slightly. "You know?" "Yes. And I am going to help him." Linda stared at me for a long moment, then slowly released my arm. "If you are determined to do this foolish thing, at least take this." She pulled a silver cross on a chain from around her neck and pressed it into my hand. "It has been blessed. It might offer some protection, might, no guarantees. Thank you. Do not thank me. If you die, it is on your own head." I made it outside into the cold night air. The street was deserted, the shops dark, the only light coming from street lamps and the full moon overhead, huge and bright and terrible. I ran toward the woods, toward Derek's cabin, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind me, I heard the howl again, much closer now. Something was following me. I ran faster, branches whipping at my face, my lungs burning. I could hear it behind me, crashing through the undergrowth, getting closer. I burst into the clearing where Derek's cabin stood. The lights were on. "Derek!" I screamed, pounding on the door. "Derek, let me in!" The door flew open. Derek stood there with his shotgun. "Get inside, now!" I dove through the doorway just as something massive slammed into the door behind me, shaking the entire cabin. Derek slammed the door shut and threw multiple locks and bolts. "You idiot," he said, his face pale. "You stupid, reckless idiot." "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking there has to be a way to break the curse. And I was thinking you know something you have not told me." Outside, the creature circled the cabin, its footsteps heavy, its breathing audible even through the walls. It scratched at the door, tested the windows, searching for a way in. Derek moved to the window, keeping well back from it, and peered out carefully. "It is Nathan," fully transformed. God, I have never seen him this close before. "Can I look?" "If you want nightmares for the rest of your life, sure." I moved to the window and looked out. The creature was massive, easily 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur. It was neither fully wolf nor fully human, but something in between. Something wrong. Its eyes glowed yellow in the darkness, filled with hunger and rage. Its claws were as long as knives, and yet despite everything, I could see Nathan in it. The shape of his face, the way he moved. "We have to help him," I said. "Help him how?" "What do you think we can do?" "You said people have tried to break the curse." "How? What methods did they try?" Derek moved away from the window and began pulling out books from shelves, old journals, maps. Silver, holy water, exorcisms, binding spells, herbal remedies, ancient rituals, everything you can imagine. Nothing worked. "The curse is too strong, too old, too deeply rooted." "What about the source?" "You said the curse started in the mines where William Cross was bitten." "What if we go there? What if there is something at the source that can end this?" Derek froze, a book halfway off the shelf. "The mines?" "Yes. If the curse originated there, maybe that is where it can be broken. Maybe there is something still down there. Some artifact or ritual site or—" "There are rumors," Derek said slowly, setting the book down on the table. "Stories passed down through the generations. Stories that say there is something still in the deepest part of the mines. An artifact, maybe, or a place of power. No one knows for sure because no one has been down there in decades. The mines were sealed off 50 years ago after a collapse killed 3 people. Too dangerous. Can you take me there?" "Are you insane?" Those mines are a death trap. Unstable tunnels, bad air, cave-ins. And that is assuming we can even get past Nathan in his current state. Outside, the scratching stopped. The footsteps moved away, fading into the distance. "It is leaving," I said. "No, it is hunting. It will be back." Derek walked to a locked cabinet in the corner and opened it with a key from his pocket. Inside was an arsenal. More shotguns, rifles, boxes of ammunition, knives, and several objects that looked like they belonged in a museum or a horror movie. Stakes, crosses, vials of liquid. "If we are going to do this, we do it right," Derek said. "We wait until morning when Nathan has transformed back. We go to the mines during daylight. We find whatever's down there, and we pray to God it gives us answers." Morning came slowly, painfully. I dozed fitfully in a chair, jerking awake at every sound, while Derek kept watch with his shotgun. When the sun finally rose, Derek and I left the cabin carefully, watching the woods for any sign of danger. We found Nathan about a mile away, unconscious and naked, covered in dirt and blood and what looked like fur. He was lying in a clearing, curled into a fetal position. Derek and I carried him back to the cabin and cleaned him up. He woke up slowly, groggily, with no memory of the night before. "What happened?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "You transformed," I said gently. "You hunted, but you did not kill anyone last night, as far as we know. You were too busy trying to get into Derek's cabin to get to me." Nathan's face crumpled. "God, I am so sorry. I could have killed you. I could have, but you did not. Listen, Nathan. Derek and I have a plan. We think we can break the curse, but we need your help." "How?" "The mines. We need to go to the mines where your ancestor was bitten. We think the answer is there." Nathan looked between us, hope and fear warring on his face. "When?" "Today. Now. Before another full moon. Before another transformation." The entrance to the mines was even more hidden than Derek's cabin. Buried deep in the woods behind a wall of overgrown vines and rusted chain-link fence that had been torn open long ago. Warning signs, faded and barely legible, declared the area off-limits and dangerous. Derek cut through what remained of the fence with bolt cutters, and we descended into the darkness, our flashlights cutting weak beams through the black. The air inside was cold and damp, smelling strongly of earth and decay and something else, something wrong that I could not quite identify. Our footsteps echoed strangely in the confined space. The tunnels were narrow, the wooden support beams ancient and rotting. "Stay close," Derek warned. "It is easy to get lost down here. People have died in these tunnels." We walked for what felt like hours, navigating through collapsed passageways, around flooded chambers where our lights reflected off black water, through sections where the ceiling had partially caved in. Nathan led the way, moving with surprising confidence as though something was guiding him. "Do you know where you're going?" I asked. "No, but I can feel something, a pull, like something is calling me." Finally, after what must have been 2 miles of walking deeper and deeper into the earth, we reached a large cavern, much bigger than the tunnels. Our flashlights could not reach the ceiling. The walls were covered in strange symbols and markings, some carved, others painted in what looked like dried blood. The symbols were old, far older than the town itself, far older than William Cross. "This is it," Derek breathed. "This is where it started." In the center of the cavern stood a stone altar, ancient and stained with old blood. The stone was not local. It looked like it had been brought from somewhere else, carved with the same strange symbols that covered the walls. On the altar sat a small wooden box, surprisingly intact despite the obvious age. "What is that?" Nathan asked, his voice echoing. "I do not know, but I think it is important. I think it is the key." Derek approached the altar carefully, almost reverently, and carefully opened the box with shaking hands. Inside, nestled in rotting cloth, was a single item, a silver dagger, its blade etched with the same symbols that covered the walls and the altar. The metal gleamed despite the age, untarnished by time. "This must be it," Derek said, his voice filled with awe. "This must be the key to breaking the curse. How does it work?" I asked. "I do not know, but look at the symbols. They are the same as the ones on the walls. This dagger was here before William Cross. Maybe it is what bit him. Maybe it is what created the curse in the first place." Nathan approached the altar slowly, drawn to it. The moment his hand touched the dagger, he gasped and jerked back. "It burns," he said, cradling his hand. There was a red mark on his palm, shaped like the blade. "That is it," Derek said excitedly. "That is the connection. Nathan, the curse is tied to you through your bloodline. If this dagger is used correctly, it might sever that connection. It might end the curse for good. How do we use it?" Nathan asked, his voice trembling. Derek pulled out one of his journals and flipped through pages covered in notes and sketches. According to the legends, according to the old stories, a curse can only be broken at its source. We are at the source, and the dagger must be wielded by someone with the blood of the cursed line. So Nathan has to use it, I said. No, Derek corrected. Nathan has to be the one it is used on. During the transformation, the dagger must pierce the heart of the beast while it is between forms, neither fully human nor fully wolf. That is the only way to break the connection to sever the curse. Nathan's face went white. That would kill me. Maybe. Or maybe it would kill the curse and free you. There is no way to know for certain. So my choices are to die now or continue living as a monster? Your choice is to take a chance, I said firmly. To risk everything for the possibility of freedom. Is not that worth it? Nathan stared at the dagger for a long time, his expression agonized. Finally, he nodded slowly. Yes, it is worth it. I cannot live like this anymore. I cannot keep waking up covered in blood, wondering who I killed, wondering when I will finally kill someone I know, someone I care about. If there is even a chance this will work, I have to take it. Then we do it tonight, Derek said. During the next full moon, we bring the dagger, we perform the ritual, and we pray it works. The next full moon came too quickly and yet not quickly enough. Derek, Nathan and I gathered at Derek's cabin as the sun set. The silver dagger laid out on the table between us like a holy relic or a murder weapon. Are you sure about this? I asked Nathan one last time. No, Nathan said honestly, but I am doing it anyway. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains and the moon began to rise, Nathan started to change. His body convulsed, his bones cracking and reshaping with sounds that made me want to vomit. Fur sprouted from his skin, dark and thick. His face elongated into a muzzle, his teeth grew into fangs. His hands became claws. But this time Derek and I were ready. Derek had prepared restraints, silver chains blessed by a priest 3 towns over. As Nathan transformed, we managed to secure him to a heavy wooden beam in the center of the cabin, though it took all our strength and he nearly broke free twice. The werewolf snarled and thrashed, its yellow eyes wild with rage and hunger. But it was trapped, held by the silver chains. Now, Derek said, handing me the dagger, it has to be you. You are the one who wanted to help him. You are the one who believed it was possible, and you are the one Nathan trusts. It has to be you. My hand shook as I took the dagger. It was cold, so cold it almost burned my palm. I approached Nathan's transformed body slowly. The creature watched me with those terrible yellow eyes, and I wondered if somewhere in there, Nathan could see me, could understand what was about to happen. I am sorry, I whispered, but this is the only way. I raised the dagger. The werewolf howled, a sound of pure agony and rage that shook the walls, and I drove the blade into its chest, directly into where the heart should be. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The werewolf screamed, a sound that was part human and part animal. Its body convulsed violently. Light burst from the wound, bright silver light that filled the cabin, blinding us. The symbols on the dagger began to glow, the same symbols that had covered the walls of the mine. The light grew brighter and brighter until I had to look away. And then slowly the creature began to change back. The fur receded, the bones reformed. The muzzle shrank back into a human face. Nathan collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, the dagger still embedded in his chest. Nathan! I dropped to my knees beside him, his eyes opened. They were brown, human, filled with pain but also clarity. Is it over? He whispered. Derek knelt beside us and carefully removed the dagger. The wound beneath was already healing, closing before our eyes. Check his pulse, I said desperately. Derek pressed his fingers to Nathan's neck, then nodded slowly, relief flooding his face. He is alive. His heart is beating, strong and steady. Nathan sat up slowly, touching his chest where the wound had been. Nothing remained except a thin silver scar in the shape of the dagger's blade. I can feel it, he said, his voice filled with wonder. The curse, it is gone. For the first time in 10 years, I can feel that it is actually gone. The pull, the darkness, the thing that lived inside me. It is gone. Derek stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the full moon. It is over. After 175 years, the curse is finally broken. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful. Nathan slowly adjusted to his new life, his new freedom. For the first time since he was 18 years old, he could go outside during a full moon without fear. He could sleep through the night without waking up covered in blood. He could live without the constant dread hanging over him. Beacon Hills began to change as well. The rules were gradually lifted. People no longer feared the full moon. Children could play outside after dark. Couples could walk hand in hand down Main Street at night. The town was finally free from the curse that had held it captive for so long. As for me, I got my story. But more than that, I got something I had not expected. A reminder that some mysteries are worth solving, that some curses can be broken, and that sometimes, risking everything is the only way to gain freedom. I stayed in Beacon Hills for another month, documenting everything, interviewing residents, writing the article that would eventually be published in a major magazine and win me awards I had never dreamed of. But more importantly, I made friends, real friends. Nathan, Derek, Logan, Blake, even Linda. They welcomed me into their community, made me part of their family. On my last night in Beacon Hills, Nathan and I sat on the porch of the inn, drinking beer and watching the full moon rise over the mountains. "Thank you," Nathan said quietly, "for everything. For believing there was a way, for risking your life, for giving me freedom." "Thank you for trusting me," I replied. "For letting me help." "For being brave enough to take the chance." We sat in comfortable silence watching the moon, no longer afraid of it. Beacon Hills would never be the same, and neither would I.